those songs you sit and you just move to. Like all of our intro songs, either bobblehead or you dance to it. This is the way it works. Hi, everybody. I'm Sandi Craig. I grew a beard this week. I just decided not to shave. And so we welcome you to the next chapter. Well, maybe I'm the next host. I don't know. No, I'm Mark David Smith. Everybody knows me. I'm the scraggly one. There have been a couple of times during the history of the Lamb Network, which is going into its 9th year after the first of the year. There's times when I've looked very clean cut. I don't know what it is about not wanting to be clean cut, but I don't know. But here I am. Sandi just has 1,045,000,000 things to do today. We counted them. And so she has about, and she's waiting, and on top of the 1,045,000,000 things to do, then, she has to wait for another thing to do. And so we just said, Sandi, take a break. And so I think between me, Mark David Smith, or what? And Joe and Sherry, the three of us can handle it. Last week we had a great show. We had Larry Sigari on, and Larry helped us out with a lot of different subjects concerning homeschooling versus public school, and that was a good one. Those archives are up on the website. And let me just say really quickly here that if you're not using the website to watch the shows, then you're actually missing what's available on the website. And there are massive amounts. There's over 1,400 videos, not just teaching videos, but just every different kinds of different things that we have done here on the Lamb Network. And so I challenge you to go to take a tour, as Susan always says at the end of every show. Take a tour of the Lamb website. That's messianiclambnetwork.com, and see what's available. You'll get to see all the different. You're going to find shows you didn't even know the Lamb Network had. As a matter of fact, I talked to an eschatology guy last night for a long time on the phone, and going to be a new show about eschatology on the Lamb Network. And so we're recruiting right now. As a matter of fact, there'll be a banner later on today on the website talking about it. If you got the gift of gab and you want to broadcast, then hey, come talk to me and we'll see what we can do. But we got a couple of different new things that I know is going to happen pretty soon, probably after the first of the year. And it's one of those things where we are always progressing, and as long as I'm in charge, we will. And I'm not selling the network anytime soon. So I don't know. I haven't heard any numbers given to me of whether somebody would like to buy or not. My wife's going, honey, you're not selling. Anyway, I'm Mark David Smith. I am the co-host of the show. I host the Contemplating the Constitution show on, trying to follow Sandi's format here, Contemplating the Constitution on Wednesday mornings, and along with Abigail O'Hare and Sherry Flannigan, comes in and helps me every once in a while. And then I also co-host with Sandi on Monday, Let Us Reason Together. And we have retired the Compass of Cram for now. Of course, that show's been retired before. Who knows? It might raise its ugly head again. But for now, it has been retired. So I'm doing other shows. Anyway, so the person that normally joins us on this, which is once again, I'm trying to follow through with Sandy's format here, is, and you're muted, Joe. This is no, I'm not Sandi Craig. Oh, no, I am Sandi Craig. Well, Sandi, you cut
I
your
dyed my hair.
Let's see, you grew a beard, you cut your hair, and you dyed it dark
brown.
Dark. I never know what to call that,
It's dark brown
or whatever, so are we playing What's My Line, or because or who is it? What
to tell the truth?
To tell the truth, yeah. No, I'm Sandi Craig. Yeah, no, that would be. I've got ideas to do that game too, so we ought to try it sometime. Anyway, Joe does the War Room Prayers right before this and this show, and about anything else that she can jump on to whenever anybody says, "Hey, come join me," which is usually me on about every show I do. It's like, "Hey, just come in." Just to me, the Lamb Network's nothing but a community anyway. It's like, hey, whatever show we're doing, you're available. Come on in. Come on in. We'll have fun with it. So, doing all right, Joe?
I'm doing good. I'm doing real good. The eye is doing great.
Good.
Eye's doing great. We just need to get the other eye taken care of.
All the better to see us with.
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to go with that one. All right. And also down here, and what would normally happen if Sandi was hosting is that I'd be coming in after Sherry, bouncing her from side to side. And so if I did that, we'd just all be fluttered all over the place. If I did that now, it only happens anyway. So Sherry, how are you this morning?
I'm good. Right before this show, Joe and I do the Thursday War Room, and we just pray ourselves happy. That's why we're just happy little people. When we come on this show, we're like, woohoo, yay!
Mm-hmm. That's what they do, right? Also, Sherry has a new series out. I think yesterday on Contemplating the Constitution, which Sherry helps me out on, we were talking about all of Sherry's past teachings that she has, and she has several different series that she's done. You can go on to messianiclamradio.com and just find Sherry's teachings there. And I think, what did we figure? You have like 42,000 different teachings on there. 41,000 somewhere in there. You got a lot. So,
I've never really, seriously, I have never really counted them.
I haven't either.
It started out, I needed to have one every week. And then I kind of, at least every week and a half or 2 weeks,
There we go. That's right. That's right.
And I really didn't know that I had that many until you start talking about it.
Yeah, it took both of us to go research and find every one of them too. I only had a fraction of them listed. So anyway, Sherry's got a new one, a study in Hebrews, and I just posted the second part 2, the part 2 online. So if you don't have notifications clicked on YouTube, you're not going to find out about these things unless you're on the website. I mean, if you get notifications clicked on YouTube, then you will get it in your email or whatever you have set up. I don't know. I don't personally do it because I'm the one that posts them on there. I know what's up. But you can go to the website, which would even be better. and just check that out day to day. Just bookmark the website up into your bookmarks and click on it every day and go check out everything's new. I update it. Literally, I update the website 7 days a week. So don't tell me you can't find anything, because I update it 7 days a week. Anyway, so we all have fun in our own way and doing different things on the Lamb Network. And so I had fun writing an email yesterday explaining the Lamb Network. And I love to do that because then it kind of reminds me, my gosh, we have a lot going on. So today, we're gonna kind of do the same thing we do, but we're gonna kind of do things a little bit different. And because I'm hosting, this is the way it goes. Sandy and I've been talking about doing games like Sandy and I used to do on Only Visiting This Planet, and most of the time, the little short games that we play are always fun, and they don't take very long. And but it like Sherry said before the show, she said, when you play games, you always find out that you know more than you think you do. And I think with me, it's like I find out all the stuff I don't know what I'm doing, or don't think I know, or whatever that is. And it's so funny because as my daughter was growing up, she loved to play games, but I didn't care. Today I do a little bit more board games. I just never liked to play them. So what I did was I created my own games. Hey, one of those in control, but I like playing board games. So,
are you sure you're not related to my mother? Because she does that.
I plead the fifth on that. So I had 3 games ready, and Joe said, let's do Torah or not Torah. So we're going to do Torah or not Torah today. And the concept of this game is that I'm going to read a statement. I'm not asking a question. I'm reading a statement. The statement could be literally a verse out of the Bible, but it has to be in the first 5 books of the Bible, or it's not Torah. It's Torah or not Torah. And they're going to tell me whether or not they think that statement is right. Is it Torah? Does it apply to Torah, or doesn't have anything to do with Torah? And that's the first 5 books. So first one, the Sabbath was only to be kept on the 7th day unless another religion was formed based on Judaism. Torah or not Torah?
Not Torah.
Not Torah.
Gosh, you guys are you may just be too smart for this game.
Yeah, okay.
My response to this that I have written, and what comes on the cards is, though most people think so. So, that's more of the response. Okay. Number 2, the first day of the 2nd month following the Exodus from Egypt was a Rosh Chodesh.
Torah.
The first day of the 2nd month
Torah.
following the Exodus from Egypt was a Rosh Chodesh.
I have no idea. So,
what do you think, Sherry?
I think it's Torah. That's the Rosh Chodesh is the new moon celebration, which is on the first day of any month.
That's the deal right there. It was a little tricky because the first day of any month is Rosh Chodesh. So
see,
there you go.
Everything.
What?
It was a trick question, though, Joe. That's a trick question.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a trick question. No, never mind. It doesn't make it. Okay, number 3. The priests serving the children of Israel were required to wear underwear.
Well, in some ways that is Torah, but it's not Torah.
It's Torah. It is absolutely Torah.
Because they had to wear all this stuff. So, yeah, it is, but that's funny.
God said to wear from your waist to your knees
little pants,
so that they would not reveal their nakedness. So and the reason why I know that is because I did that with the kids. I'll say, God invented underwear.
Not only that, he wore other things too. He didn't just
Yes,
wear
he
the underwear.
did. But he did
Let's
it.
hope.
So
Let's hope.
Yeah,
Well, they had to go up the steps, and that was the thing with the pagan people. They wanted to. Well, I'm getting off into something, but anyway, that's what they did is they exposed themselves to people when they went up and down the steps. So God said, "Don't do it."
Yeah, Torah.
Okay, Exodus 28:40. For Aaron's sons, you shall make for them linen undergarments to cover their naked flesh, and they shall be on Aharon and his sons when they go into the tent of meeting or when they come near the altar. So, yes, they were, it's actually required, it was commanded for them to wear underwear.
But it doesn't specifically say to wear underwear. I'm just using the opposite end of the spectrum. Yes, it is Torah, though.
Okay.
God invented underwear is the bottom line.
Next question.
A good thing.
So when I talked to Sandi after the show and she says, "So how did it go today?" Well, we talked about underwear. You know,
there you have it.
We're all right. We're good.
All right. No subject taboo that's in Scripture. Trust me.
Okay. Last one. When somebody recites the Shema, if they are west of Jerusalem, they must face east. If they are east of Jerusalem, they must face west. Torah or not Torah? When one recites the Shema, if they are west of Jerusalem, they must face east. If they are east of Jerusalem, they must face west. Torah or not Torah?
Not Torah.
No.
Joe?
You always face east.
I don't think it is because you can face east no matter what. Because it's anyway, it's not Torah.
Not Torah.
The basics of
it. If you said it was Torah, then I'd have to say, show me.
Yeah, that was a trick question there.
Not a trick question.
To me, it was a trick question because I'm trying to figure out. I know you're supposed to face east, and I'm going, but you don't face west. And if you're flat earther,
if you're a flat earther, then yeah, that one applies. That's right.
Well, see, Mark, I'm a flat earther.
I see. I get. Okay, well,
I have the Torah, not Torah, just for you, Mark. Peter, Paul, and Mary. Torah, not Torah.
Peter, Paul, Mary. No, not Torah, because they were in the New Testament. Not Torah. You can't trick the guy that made the game. You know, so. All right, the game is going to be produced again. As a matter of fact, I'm soon after the first of the year. There are many things that my You Lord prayer books are going to be republished and sold, and the Torah and not Torah games are going to be sold along with a couple of other different items. But so bringing that back, and so look for it after the.
Maybe we ought to have a game show, just like once a month, a game show.
You know what I would love to, Sherry. The only problem is the one of the main reasons that I shut down Compass of Cram. I can't get anybody to come on the show. It's kind of the same thing with Only Visiting This Planet. People just stopped being guests on the show, and Sandi and I can't do the show without guests. And I won't do a show by myself. And it ended up last Monday night that it was just Daryl and I. And so Daryl and I talked after the show, and it's kind of like every week it's like pulling teeth to try to get somebody to come on the show and talk about these subjects. But we won't get into it. But anyway, that's the problem. I would love to do a game show. We've had that idea from the inception of Lamb Radio, and it just doesn't work because you're begging people to come on and play, and so that's why I say, on this show or on Monday Reason, which is what I'm on, we can insert some of these things in there and have fun with it. Go ahead.
What I was going to say is the Torah or not Torah game. If you do not own that and it does come up to on the website to purchase it. Guys, purchase it. My parents purchased a game like that. It was a little different. It's like Trivial Pursuit, and they really liked that. So I need to remind my parents about the Torah or not Torah, because I had told them before, and they didn't see it at the time, and they really want to get it, because it is it teaches your children Torah, first of all, and it's a good homeschoolers out there. Great game for your kids. The second thing I have a question for is the Big X coming back as well.
The Big X is available. All you gotta do is ask me for it, and I'll give it to you.
Very good book for homeschoolers, and it's about the greater Exodus, and it's a fictional, but yet there's a lot. If you like a good fiction that brings truth, Big X. I'm sorry, Mark. I love that book, and I've sent that book to a couple homeschoolers to test it out, and they said thumbs up. They loved it. They said it was great to teach their kids.
Thank you very much. No, the Experiencing the Big X is a novel that is actually got more words in it than War and Peace, and I will give the book away. So all you got to do is ask me for it. If you're watching the show and you'd like to have that book, I'll give you the link where you can go download it. Anyway, we're going to move on, and Joe is going to do a homeschooling segment. So we'll see you right after this.
So my topic for today is like survival stuff. Have you been teaching your children survival? Like if a hurricane comes, an earthquake. Uh-oh. Am I still here? Oh, here we go. Have you taught your child to survive? Because so many people have never taught their child how to build a fire, because, fire's dangerous is what a lot of people say. But children need to learn these skills, and these skills are very important for survival if something happens. Do they know what to do? Do they know how to do it? When the electricity goes out, for instance, do they know where the flashlight is? Do they know where the candles are? Do they know where the matches are? Do they know where these things are? Now, remember, each item like matches and stuff, you don't want to give to a 2-year-old. Okay, we need to use our common sense in that sense. But are you teaching your child how to survive? Do they know about first aid? Do they know what to do? Have you taught your child, even like the younger ones, that if something happens, like mommy really gets hurt, have you taught them to dial 911 and let them know how to talk to a 911 operator and say, my mother is hurt, and so on and so forth? There's been lots of videos where you've seen young children do that, and it's wonderful. But also building a fire because you're out somewhere and you need that warmth. How to build a tent. I watched a video a couple weeks ago that was really interesting. A family decided to teach their children for the weekend about how to survive in the cold if the electricity went out. So what they did is they turned their electricity really, really low, and they made sure their pipes and everything was okay. And what they did is they ended up showing their children how to set up a tent for warmth and putting everybody in that tent, and how to survive in a situation like that for the whole weekend. And each individual child was taught an individual job. One child was taught, how to boil water. Another child was taught how to start the stove. Each child, for their different level of education and age, was taught these things. Are you teaching your child how to prepare? Are you teaching your child how to prepare for, a situation where somebody gets hurt and cut, that they know where the first aid kit is, and they know how to, fix a wound, clean the wound? Have you taught your child that? Now, again, some of these things are for older children. Some of them are for young children can do too, because you can have a young child, and teach them where the first aid kit is so they can bring it to you. And then you can teach that child when it gets older how to open that first aid kit, what's in the first aid kit, and what to do. In fact, first aid is very important to learn. Have you taught your child about putting water away and where the water is? Have you taught your child where the stove, if you have a camping stove, if needed, because your electricity goes out and you have an electric stove? Have you taught your child these things? These things are very important for your child to learn so that when these things happen, they don't run around crying, screaming, and confused. So we need to start teaching our children as well as ourselves how to prepare for things like this. And I'm just going to leave it at this short little thing. You can go look up and Google preparing for a tornado or preparing for anything with a child, and you will find so much out there. And there are even YouTube videos that'll teach you things like that. And you need to teach your child how to be prepared because you never know what might happen. That's what I have for today.
You know, especially with 2020 behind us, yeah, you know, we need to be teaching our kids. Well, not that we shouldn't have been teaching them these things before 2020, but especially since 2020, there are just exponentially a large amount of things that are now adults need to know. Hey, you know, you're talking about teaching your kids, but my gosh, I say like, what? I can't, I never can figure. There you go. What? You know, it's like we all need to know a lot of these things. I'm not so sure that I know the majority of the things that we need to teach our kids. Of course, my kids are all grown and gone and got grandkids and the whole thing. But hey, I agree with you. There's just too many things. But make a list, you know, and start searching them out and teach your kids and teach each other and get ready because this is not your grandma's 21st century. Let me just put it that way to you. So, yeah, I'm with you.
And there's been incidences where, like, some of the kids, 10, 11, 12-year-olds, have taken these CPR classes. And I saw where, like, one little girl saved her little brother who'd fallen in the pool. And when they pulled him out, she was giving him CPR. She knew what to do. And she literally brought him back to where he was breathing again. So you just never know. I mean, children can and do help on many situations. One funny one, if I can tell a funny story, a little boy called 911 and he was going, "The babysitter needs you. The babysitter needs you." The babysitter had gone and opened the freezer and stuck her tongue on the inside of the freezer and got her tongue stuck, and you could hear her go, "Oh, oh." And the little boy had to climb on a chair and open the door and let them in, and they were shocked to find the babies. I thought, she would never babysit for me again. Golly. And they're like, "Why'd you do that?" "I just wanted to see what they was talking about." I mean, it's just like, hello. So that was a 911 call from a 3-year-old to save his babysitter from a torn off tongue.
Oh my gosh.
In case y'all out there don't know it, don't go sticking your tongue on the flagpole and don't go sticking your tongue on the freezer. It will rip your tongue to pieces. Do not do that.
And don't do it in a dare either.
No.
Some people, I just don't understand that. But what's interesting is that I put a website up in the chat there that has a list of a few things. But yes, you can go to, like Tammy was saying, you can go to, what was it called again? Ask a Prepper is a good site. And yes, it is a good site. And I didn't mention that, but it is a good site. But we need to, you know, if you haven't even learned these things, learn alongside your children. You know what? When you're educating your child and learning this at the same time you're teaching them, you'll learn it even more than you did by just sitting down learning it from somebody else. Teaching it just gives you that more of a learning aspect. So teach it and have your child teach it back to you. That's one thing we forget, is to have our child, when they get excited about that, they learn something, sit back and say, okay, show me how to put a ace bandage on a sprained ankle. Let them do that. All you have to do is sit back and let them put the bandage on you. Just make sure they don't mummify you. Okay. We did do a time where I taught my kids first aid, and we didn't have an ace bandage. So what we did, and it was all in good fun, toilet paper. Oh, wait, aren't we in a shortage of toilet paper?
Yeah, don't mention that, no.
But toilet paper, you would wrap it around, and we reuse, we use the toilet paper for wiping things down and stuff. But my daughter was showing me how she could wrap an ankle with toilet paper. And she says, Mommy, we need to get one of these bandages. And she was right, because we did not have that in our first aid kit. Check your first aid kits. Start teaching your children to prepare, because it's very important. And like Mark said, and point the right way, Mark said, with the way things are going today, we need to educate our children with this. And it's very important.
And if you get an old copy of a Boy Scout handbook, they got a lot of this stuff in there, because they had to work for certain badges, first aid badges, camp building badges and all that. And they have good step-by-step information on how to do stuff.
And you don't have to pay for it.
That's what Cub Scout, Boy Scout, of course, it's been 30, 40 years since I looked at one, but if they still had them like they did back then, they had a lot of good info in them.
You do not have, and another thing, because I can see dollar signs going into parents' eyes right now. You don't have to pay for a class. I mean, the first aid class, it would be good, especially CPR class, to pay for that, at your YMCA or something. But you can go online. There are many YouTube videos out there that teach prepping. There are library books. And like Sherry, like you said, the Boy Scout books, there are a lot of things that you can find for free to do your research with. You don't have to go pay for a whole curriculum of preparation or first aid. It's there. They have it everywhere. In fact, some fire departments, especially where I live, some of them every year teach CPR for free for those that cannot afford to pay for a class, because it's important to have.
Right.
So that's what's for today's homeschool segment. And again, very important to teach your children this.
Another important thing too is how to escape your house if it catches on fire. What are you going to do? People, they get up and they go to run like this. No, you crawl on the floor, because smoke rises.
Right.
Most people die from smoke inhalation, not from the fire itself.
Right. Lots of different things. We need to make a list.
Yes.
Of all the different things we need to talk. You need to talk about with your family, period. Not just the kids, the adults, the teenagers, everybody. You need to talk about it. So I will tell you one thing, though. If you go to the Walmart here near our house, the whole side of the aisle, if they have the big signs up there, paper products or something like that. And normally there's toilet paper on one side and paper towels on the other side. Now it's paper towels and Christmas flowers. What do they call them? Poinsettias or something like that? Yeah, it's a whole aisle. So let me just tell you, in 2020, Walmart thinks that poinsettias are more important than toilet paper. I just want to leave you with that right there, and we'll be back right after this with a little bit of news.
Well, here's the news that I have for today. This article is called "Transgender Activist: All children should be given puberty blockers." We have talked about this many times on the Lamb Network, and this has popped up on December 15th, that this transgender, and here's this transgender's name. So this will give you red flags right here. Xenia Adult Demon Female. Yes, that's what they call themselves on Twitter. It is a man. He was born male that considers himself a female. that says if children can't consent to puberty blockers, which pause any permanent changes, even with the relevant professional evaluation, how can they consent to the permanent and irreversible changes that come with their own puberty with no professional evaluation whatsoever? I think this man needs to talk to Yahovah. He also comes to say, this is literally a position that permanent changes are fine as long as you're not trans. This man has wanting to, I'm calling him a man because he has the chromosome of a male. He may think he's a female, and that's his choice. But he is sitting there saying that our children, all children, not just children that say that they think that they're a boy or a girl or whatever, but all children should have puberty blockers. And I'm sitting there going, really? Yeah? Our God created our bodies. Our God created our bodies for good. And he created our bodies to do the things that they're supposed to do. And one of the things is to go through puberty. Now, this day and age, we've had puberty issues where the children have some children are going through puberty a little bit early. And that's because of some of the foods and everything. And that's a whole nother ballpark there and a whole nother discussion. But this whole thing about the puberty blockers that you're going to have your child take from the ages of 10 to 17. I did some research on puberty blockers. And the interesting thing about it is these doctors are sitting there touting that, oh, it's okay, you can change. If you decide that you don't want to be, let's say I decide I want to be a man, okay? I decide I want to be a man, so I take these puberty blockers. I'm a boy now. And all of a sudden, I decide, you know what? I decided I want to go back to being a girl. That you can stop it and nothing's going to happen. There will be no drastic change. That is untrue. They are testing our children with things that should not be tested on children or anybody, in fact. These things cause infertility. They have found it has caused osteoporosis in some people that have been taking fertility blockers. It has caused joint pains. It's also caused some people with rashes and other issues. It's also caused to where the young men, when they're boys taking puberty blockers to become a girl, will have their seed count go down. They will have issues with their scrotum. A lot of female issues will happen as well. Again, infertility. These things will cause a lot of damage physically, emotionally, and mentally to these children when they become adults and decide to change back. And they have also found that when some people have gone through these blockers and then stopped taking them, that they've dealt with depression and thinking that they're worth nothing because they're not going back to the way they were. It really damages the body. This is not a good thing. We need to stand up. We need to speak this out. We need to start defending our children because our children are being attacked every day, starting from a child in the womb to a child that's starting puberty. We need to stand up for our children, and we need to do it quick. And we've talked about I think it's the HR 5, Mark, is that correct? Okay, so yeah, we've discussed it on Lamb Radio. You can go to messianiclambradio.com and you could find these HR conference talks that we've talked about. It's a bill, HR 5. There's a lot going on in that situation that they're loopholing things in there. And again, we need to take care of this and we need to speak forth and we need to protect our children. And you guys can come on in and we can discuss this a little bit. There is so much more about this, but it just really ticked me off that this transgender thinks he knows everything. And to have that type of name, who wants to follow that, especially if you're a believer? Sorry. I'm not sorry. I'm not following that.
Well, it literally, it seems that more and more, literally, it used to be every so often, but now it's every day. Anything that God created is natural, as something that is supposed to happen and it's the process of life, somebody's coming against it. And it's so funny because so many of these different things seem to be tied to the LBGT movement. It's so many things that it just keeps coming up and keeps coming up and keeps coming up. Literally, if it has something to do against God's normal process, then it all comes under the heading of the HR5 or the LGBT movement. I ran across an article the other day that somebody was starting now to tie in. Let me real quickly. I got it right there in the headline. If homosexuality is okay, then why isn't incest okay? And when we did the HR5 conference, which you can find on the LAM Network, you just go do a search for it on the LAM Network, and it'll pop up. We had loads of pages on that. And we talked about the fact that pedophilia is actually a part of the LGBT movement in accepting pedophiles, because it's coming against something that this is the way they want to be. And so our society is now blocking everything that people come against. If we're coming against it, they're blocking us and allowing these things to come out, because according to them, they are the natural course of life. If it's God's natural course, then God's not popular these days, but anything against God is popular these days. I just can't imagine that even something has been created that is what's called a puberty blocker. I just can't even imagine that somebody tried to come up with this in the first place, or even if it was an accident that they found that they had something that could stop this process. Why didn't they stop the process of processing it at the time they found it? Because there's no reason for it. Absolutely no reason. I don't care what the deal is. That product we shouldn't even be putting those two words in together. Puberty blocker. Just those two words shouldn't even be in a sentence together for any reason. And so I'm going to tell you, when I have to talk to Sandi about what we talked about today, underwear, toilet paper, and puberty blockers, she's going to say, Mark, you're never hosting that show again. I'm telling you.
And what's interesting is this puberty blocker, one of the puberty blockers that they talked about, and it starts with a Z. Forget it, I'm not going to pronounce it, because they like to do, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious words. So anyway, this puberty blocker, what was used for it to begin with was prostate cancer, was to help men with prostate cancer. And it was also to help with other items, but they found out that this helps to block the hormone that gets triggered in for puberty. And what's interesting about this also is you hit it. I think you hit it on the nail on the head with the pedophilia. These pedophiles don't want the children to grow up and become men and women. They want them to stay in that process. But also what was interesting is, I can't find the article right now, but you can, look it up yourself, is that there's a lot of LGBTQ, mainly not the T, the transgender. This one transgender, but a lot of lesbians and gays out there, or homosexuals, they're stating that they don't want that, because they want to where a child grows up to be attracted, a girl to a girl and a boy to a boy kind of thing. Okay, so there's a lot of fighting going on amongst the LGBT.
Well, of course there is.
Okay.
Of course there is.
Exactly. it's a mess, but we need to step up and speak out, because this has been going on so long, not just with the transgender, but also with the murder of our children. And we need to save it's time to step up and save the children. In fact, Matthew, I'm going to read this because this is Yahovah's word. Matthew 18:6. And whoever ensnares one of these little ones who trusts me and many children, they know him. It would be better for him to have a millstone hung around his neck and be drowned in the open sea.
Right. Yep, that's good. And don't ever say the mafia isn't biblical. Sherry got it. Go ahead, Sherry.
In the words of my sweet grandmother who partially raised me, have we lost our cotton picking minds? I mean, have we just lost it? I mean, not often Chatty Cathy here is at a loss for words.
I'm with you. Yeah.
I'm like, have we lost all sense of direction? A boy is a boy, a girl is a girl. It's in their DNA. It's in their chromosome. You ain't going to change it. You may change the outward look of the body, but you ain't going to change it. Mm-hmm. Get over it. Mm-hmm. And, it says in scripture, I'm fixing to get out some real heavy water here. Male and female, he created them. It wasn't until they took the female out of Adam. So you can have males that are born with the nurturing part, or you can have females that have more of an outdoorsy, go get them type thing. It doesn't mean they're not a female or a male. It just means they have, different traits. Everybody's different. And we seem to think, oh, that little boy plays with the doll, there must be something. No, he just has more nurturing traits. That's just his personality. Get over it. It's a boy. He's liable to grow up, be a stay-at-home dad, and his wife goes out and works. Who knows? But I mean, we try to stereotype kids and put them in boxes, and have we lost our cotton picking minds? And I'll tell you, I heard someone say that they saw Yeshua, and I don't know if you put it that way, but he's really mad about this. He's really hot about this one. Probably because it is corrupting children. A child cannot defend themselves in a lot of ways. You can stand up whatever you teach them, they're going to believe you most times, unless someone's there to present a counter argument. Mm-hmm. And so it is a corruption of children is exactly what it is. We're murdering our children and we're corrupting them. Don't send letters to Messianic Lamb Video Network. I have the right to free speech. This is my opinion. They're nuts. They're just nuts. And they're showing stuff out there. They're proving that kids, that 11-year-old cannot make the choice of going through puberty or not. And they have shown that some of the kids that have had that and then got up in their 20s bitterly regretted that they did it. Mm-hmm. They don't have the right, the whole thing is wrong to begin with. A boy is a boy and a girl is a girl. So what if the guy likes to cook and likes to take care of the kids? Big deal. He's who cares? Doesn't mean he's weird.
One of the things I was thinking about, you brought to my mind, is that, there is probably no greater hurt in an adult's life than to lose a child. Okay. That's just not the natural order of things. Mm-hmm. But so when I think of puberty blockers, and it's determining how that child grows, then what greater, my gosh, that's just like right next to literally having your child die. It's all but having your child die, because you have just set a course for that child that is not the way it's supposed to be. And it's like I just can't imagine. I just can't imagine.
It's stunting their growth. It's to me, it's abuse. Okay. Now I'm going to ask this question because this transgender Xenia, I'm not going to say the rest of her name or his name, says if children can't consent to puberty blockers, which cause any permanent changes, even with the relevant professional evaluation, how can they consent to permanent and irreversible changes that come with their own puberty with no professional evaluation whatsoever? So what, I find, I'm like going, because this is a natural order, sir. It's a natural thing. That's like going and saying, well, a cat, she shouldn't go and mate with a male cat and have babies because that just, she doesn't understand what she's doing. I just don't understand this person's mentality until I put in the chat the websites for the stuff I'm talking about. And there's a picture of him, because it's a him. And he has a little tattoo on here that's, by the way, it's a witchcraft symbol. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, that makes sense why you're saying this. Because again, Mark, you said it. It's all against what God has done, what God has created, how he has manipulated. God created each one of us to go from a seed that grows into a child in the womb to be born. From birth, that child grows to become a man if he's created as a boy, or a woman if he's created as a female. And they are created in God's image. What's happening today, I believe, is man is trying to become God and trying to create themselves in their own image and not God's image. And that's a big no-no.
Yeah.
And what kind of qualifications does this man have? Where did he come from? What's his qualifications? I mean, maybe he didn't even graduate from high school. Who cares? I mean, I don't care if he went and he's got a PhD in whatever. PhD could be post hole digger too. I mean, common sense. Yep. It's like I just think about my grandma. Have we lost our cotton picking minds?
So the question is
ridiculous.
So if a child doesn't understand that they're going through the puberty, then putting those blockers on, I'm doing the opposite side of the spectrum here. I'm doing their side. So if the child doesn't understand puberty, it's okay to give them those blockers because they don't understand that either.
Yeah.
Does
right?
My marbles.
Right. One thing leads to another. That's all there is to it. Exactly. All right. I think we've exhausted that one.
Yep.
We're going to move into the last section of the show. I'm going to talk a little bit about facing conflicts in the workplace. And so we will be right back after this.
We'll be dancing in the streets, dancing at his feet, dancing in the streets of gold. We'll be dancing in the streets, dancing at his feet, dancing in the New Jerusalem. And we will sing Kadosh, Kadosh to the Lord of hosts, joining in the angels' choir, and forever we will be.
All right. Well, my name is Mark David Smith, and I'm the owner of the Lamb Network. And in some realms, this is my workplace, as it is right now. I'm 66 years old. I have most of my life, I've been in business for myself. I've done quite well. I've retired 5 different times in my life, and I have worked a regular punch the clock jobs a couple of times in my life, and I'm very familiar with that. And facing conflicts in the workplace is the title of this, and it's within the series Facing Conflicts, and that we're doing here. Let me just let me take it from, I can only take it from my point of view, my perspective, based on owning businesses myself and having people work for me. When I was young, I always hired my friends because I was a carpenter. I did finish carpentry most of the time when I was young, and did that for many, many years, and was able to control the environment. And that really is what happens when you're facing conflict in a workplace environment, whether or not you're in business for yourself, or you're working for yourself, or you're working for somebody else. You're punching the clock, and they're taking the taxes out, and somebody is in charge over you. The whole thing, it makes no difference. What has to happen is the environment needs to be under a specific control, and that control has to coincide with your personality as it deals with other personalities. And that really is the bottom line, as far as I'm concerned, from my perspective, is how you can face specific conflicts yourself. It boils down to, how do you face those conflicts? And if you're the type of person that you are real picky about who you hang out with, and who your friends are, and that type of thing, then at work, which you normally, if you are, let's just take it as punching the clock type of job, then you really have no say in who's being hired, who you're working with, and what those personalities are. So you have to adapt to those situations. So if there is conflicts, you have to be the bigger person and adapt to that conflict, and change the conflict based on the Word of God. It doesn't mean you have to throw the Word of God in their face and say you're wrong because the Word of God says this, because most of the times we work in environments where rarely more than you, maybe one other person, really does adhere to the Word of God and follow godly concepts. So there's a lot of give and take when it comes to conflicts in the workplace. And once again, I think the real key is to understand that you have to be the bigger person, and sometimes you have to compromise. Sometimes you have to just totally give in and let the conflict work itself out, as it may be behind the scenes. I think we all, as mature human beings, know that conflict in most areas eventually work themselves out with time. You give it some time and let it run its course, and don't push the matter. Never push a conflict. Never push it. Never feed a conflict, ever. There's no reason to ever feed a conflict by, what I'm saying is adding to it. And I think that really does, in essence, cover the punch a clock scenario of facing conflicts in a punch a clock workplace. Now, once again, most of my life, I have owned my own businesses, and I can regulate who works for me. It really does come down to personalities and the abilities to do whatever it is I'm doing, whatever business I own, whatever business I run, and the people that work there. And it goes back to even the punch the clock type scenario in a workplace is that you have got to hope that and put a trust and respect into the person doing the hiring, whether it's the owner or whether or not it's a supervisor that hires, that maybe you could put some input into who's being hired and personalities that are being worked there. In my once again, when I owned my own business and I had employees, it was, I already knew ahead of time what the situations might be that we were going to have to run into a conflict. And so most of the time I was able to talk it out, and most of the time I'm able to hire someone that is in the same faith that I'm in. So it's easy enough to use the Word of God then to work on conflicts and work through conflicts through what it is. The last job I had before I finally retired and went full force into working the Messianic Lamb Network, the last job I had, I entered into the job. It was a retail job, a multi-million-dollar retail store. There were two stores that the owner had, and I was the operations director for those stores. I worked behind the scenes. I was not a salesman. I'm not a salesman per se. I can do it, but I worked behind the scenes, in the background. And within 9 months after starting this job, the owner came to me and said, "Look, it's pretty obvious that you can run this place. You're already running it on base salary, and I don't believe that's right. So I am bumping you up to the operations director and in charge of both stores." So within 9 months, I was already running both of the stores, and I did that for 5 years, the next 5 years after that. So I actually was in charge of hiring and firing also. Came down to, what we needed for the store when we needed someone. I was very, very, very picky on who I hired and made sure that those conflicts were as minimal as possible. I have to give an example. It was one of the people that I hired. I had several different people to pick from, and I ended up picking a young guy that I almost knew he and I were not going to, we were going to bump heads. I almost knew it, but yet he was the best one for the job. I ended up hiring him, and the whole last, I think, 3 years that I was there after I hired him, we constantly had conflict, but it was every time we came out of that conflict, we shook hands and agreed to have respect for each other. And it just simply, it comes down to approaching any conflict you come with, whether in the workplace or just in regular time or in a congregation. You approach it with a mature reasoning ability between the two of you, and you come to whatever you need to do, and don't ever try to be the one, even if you're in charge like I was for most of my life. Everything that I've done, I'm the one that was in charge. I never tried to usurp my authority over everybody. I had to stand my authority, but I always worked out with the other person and listened to what they had to say, because if you're in a conflict, the other person has a value to how they think about the situation. And you must look at that person as having value, and their thought process, their reasoning process has got to be of value to you, and listen to it. Use the word of God for yourself, but never push that on anybody in a workplace ever. It's just not right. It's not done. It's not of God. But you have to stand up to your principles. So that's my basic facing God in the workplace. So why don't you guys come on back in and give me your opinion? Am I just as whack
Mark,
as I can be, or what?
I worked outside the home for a little while, and I worked as a office clerk first at this company, and then eventually it was a landscape company, and they had it was one company, but two companies separated to where there was two of us. One was the office manager for the landscaping, and one of us was the office manager for the tree service. And I had the tree service girl did not like me. And so she would always try to push things on me and tell me, well, I'm the manager of the whole corporation, so you have to listen to me. I kept quiet. I just did my job diligently and didn't say a word till one day the owner of the company came up and asked me some questions. I did not lie, but I did not say anything nasty about the woman. All I said was, he looked at me and says, wow, you can't seem to be getting your work done, all your office work done. I had a stack like this of what they call walkthroughs that I had to type up, okay, and contracts and everything. And I said, this much of it is landscaping. This much of it is tree service. And he looked at me and says, what do you mean? I says, oh, I'm just helping this person out. She seems to be overloaded. So he went upstairs to check on her and found out the truth. A whole other story. And he reprimanded her, came back downstairs, took that file of that stack and took it back up to her, put it on her desk, and pretty much told her, you do your job, she'll do her job. Because I have to deal with contracts where I have to go out to lunch with potential clients. Like the Hotel del Coronado was one of the big contracts of this company. And you had to kiss this man, and give him what he wanted, the owner of the Hotel Del, because that's where a lot of presidents went. So I learned to keep my mouth quiet, surprisingly. Not easy for this person. I sit there and joke around a lot of times when I would come home from work saying, is my tongue still there? And my husband would say yes. And in Romans 12, verses 17 through 21 says, repay no one evil for evil, but try to do what everyone regards as good, if possible, and to extend that it depends on you. Live in peace with all people. Never seek revenge, my friends. Instead, leave that to God's anger, for in the Tanakh it is written, Adonai says, vengeance is my responsibility. I will repay. On the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. For by doing this, you will heap fiery coals or shame on his head. So if you do kindness and stuff, you will have that happen.
Well said.
That is something that we need to remember. Sometimes we want to speak out and we want to sit there and say, I want to defend myself. Well, Joe's been learning this in 2020 since January, to just keep her mouth shut, pray for that person, and show love and kindness, just like it shows in Romans. And we need to remember that in all aspects, not just the job situation, but also at home, when someone disagrees with you at home or in the congregation, or, your story, Mark. We all need to learn to just be quiet and let the Father work that out, because he's the one that works what's in here. We can't do nothing there.
Very good. Very good. Sherry.
I worked for years under conflict from different people, but I believe it was to help perfect and mature me. Sometimes we're put in situations to work with people. And I mean, I just, One of the things was I worked with the girl. I over a series of time, I was asked to form a department, and then that was built upon this. And I had a girl that was working with me, and she, I guess, got to where she just didn't want to work in that department anymore, and went to the boss, told the boss that I did not know how to do a specific report and that she didn't have enough to do. She was bored. Well, the boss comes over there and swaps our desk out for stuff, and I'm like, what's going on? And then calls me into the office and starts telling me what she said. And I looked at her and I said, well, the report that I supposedly don't know how to do, I'm the one who wrote the rules and the regulations on how to do the report. I was asked by your boss to develop this report. And her eyes got this big. And I said, another thing, if she doesn't have enough to do, then why does she have all this overtime? It was like different. I just kind of kept my mouth shut about stuff. But when it came up, it was like right there. I had another lady that I found out later had gone to the boss and was complained about my phone calls. Well, she didn't realize they had a way to monitor phone calls. And I got called into the office. Well, she come back out of the office mad and she said, they want to see you. I'm like, okay. So I go back to the office and my boss says, shut the door. And I thought, oh my goodness. She said, I want to personally apologize to you. And I said, okay, for what? She said, so-and-so came in here and said that you were on the telephone all the time with Bob because Bob's gone a lot. And she said, we pulled the phone records and found out that other than the times, because I would say, like, if I spent 30 minutes on the phone with Bob, I'd say, that's my lunch hour. And I'd let him know. That's my lunch time. I wasn't using your time. She said, other than the times you came and told us about the times that you were talking with him, you're not on the phone. Contrary to her talking to her daughter in Hawaii at an average of 2 hours a day. So that was a working out of, she laid a pit for me and fell in it herself. Story after story about that. We hired a guy and I knew, I interviewed him and I thought, but when my boss looked at it, she said, no, hire him because he knows da-da-da-da-da. I knew he was going to be trouble, but I thought, no, that's just me. We'll just work it out. And I heard him on the phone telling people, some of my clients, how stupid I was and how dumb I was and all this stuff. And I thought, that's interesting. I mean, things were revealed of what he was doing behind my back. And he went to the boss. The boss called me in the office and says, well, so-and-so brought this letter. We had to do claims for money. This claim letter over here, and you're going to change your claim letter to this. And I looked at it and I held it up to her and I said, you see this line right here? I've already talked to compliance about this. I just had this taken out of our letter because compliance said it was not covered by all the stuff. It was not legal. It had to be reworded. I just did that a few weeks back. It was like, and she's like, oh, well, he's just trying to show you and I thought, yeah, he's trying to take over my job, and it was about that time that Bob and I got married. And, I had never really taken a full 2 weeks off, and I took 2 weeks off. When I got back, all the other girls in the office met me at the door. They were laughing. They're saying, girl, you wouldn't believe what took place when you were gone. This so-and-so over here was supposed to be doing all this. Said he had people calling him and cussing him and hollering at him because he wasn't doing this, that, and the other thing. Said he kept saying, when's Sherry going to be back? When's Sherry going to be back? When's Sherry going to be back? And so when I got that job, it was prophesied to me that what would happen, that I would find a bunch of stuff. But I was always to remember that God had enabled me to do that job. And that is my testimony about that job I had. He enabled me to do it. It was amazing because I'd say, well, this is wrong or this is wrong. And I told someone, I said, I sit over here and I crank out the work. Nobody really realizes how much work I'm cranking out, but God's enabling me to do this. So it makes people on the outside looking in look easy. I probably did 70% of the work in that department, and people didn't really realize it because it was just like this. I would see it. And when I retired, they actually brought in a guy from New York and asked me to stay on that to get some things straightened out. That was not my fault. I had warned them that this was going to happen, and it did happen. And he came over to me, and he was so funny. I mean, the guy was really, really nice. He said, he brought something to me, and I said, lay it there. A few minutes later, I said, this is where the problem is, da, da, da. He comes back, he said, you make that look so easy. Now, how do you do that? What do you do? What do you, and I said, do you really want me to tell you what I do when I'm handed a problem like this? I said, I'll look at it, and if I can't figure it out right away, I'll put it over here to the side, and I'll pray, and I'll ask the Lord to show it to me. I said, I pray about it. He looked at me, he said, okay. And I said, and God shows me where it is. He, okay. And he went back to his desk. So, but, you know, I mean, that I could not have done that job without the Lord. And I always said, I will have this job until God is ready for me to move on. And I cannot tell you how many people came up and tried to stab me in the back. And I watched God turning on them. Somebody was complaining about something and they were going to write me up for it. And then here comes my boss. Well, we got this letter from a client saying you help them more than the people at their place help them, and da da da. I mean, just absolutely turn it around on people. Had one woman that was lying to people. I had to ask questions about certain entries. And by the time I'd leave her desk, she was one of my bosses. And walked over to the desk, the other person, she was on the phone telling them I was trying to cut their throat and do them in and don't tell me nothing. Yet I still figured it out. I didn't find out. I couldn't figure out why people didn't like me. But it was because of all her lies. And God had told me right when I first got that job, he would remove one and shut the mouth of another. And I saw him remove one of my bosses. And that woman was the one that he shut her mouth. Because we had, I started getting rewards from the upper bosses for the things that me and this other lady were doing. I mean, but it was several years of conflict. But I have to say this, it caused me to throw myself on God more. It caused me to control my flesh. And because I guess I'm going over long. I don't mean to do that, but it did cause me to crucify that flesh and respond in kindness. And I finally did. One lady, I went to the boss. I said, I'm officially telling you, I really don't like being alone with this lady in the room. And they moved us into with the group of people. But the personnel lady told me, she said, I asked your boss, you know, did you report a lot of people? She said, she don't report nobody. This is a big deal. So, but, you know, it was just, I always had to keep in mind, I can't return evil for evil. I wasn't really working for them. I was working for the Lord. So I had to do it right because I knew I worked for him. I mean, it's our perspective when we're under strife like that. And I know that God was always faithful to me. And when it was time for me to leave, I knew it was time for me to leave and go on. They replaced me with 5 people. So they ended up replacing me with 5 people. So anyway, just wherever you are, if you're going through the fire, know that the fire gets out the dross. And how are we to respond? We're not responsible for what people do to us. We are responsible on how we respond to them. And I'm not saying I'm any great saint, because let me tell you something. There were some times I failed the test, but that was kind of as believers, we want to please the Lord. And I see that scripture. He reigns on the just as well as the unjust. He sends rain to the just and the unjust. So we have to be merciful if we want to get mercy. And I ended up praying for my near everybody there. And so, and they thought I was a nut. They were going to send me to, whatever you call that, what do you call it, where they try to tell you you're okay, I'm okay, and all that kind of stuff. They said, we're not even going to send you. Huh?
Psychiatrist.
No, it was
HR.
Psychiatrist.
diversity training. That was it. And they were sending everybody, and I got called in the office and said, we've already figured out it's not going to do you any good. So I'm like, I don't ever say anything to anybody. They're like, going back to your desk. We're not sending you. So,
All right. Well,
I didn't mean to be so long. I'm sorry.
Thank you, ladies, for your input. Really appreciate that. I hope this does. Somebody finds this if they're having conflicts in the workplace, and all of our little things will help them out on that. And so I appreciate your input on this. So I have no idea where Sandy's going to take this next. So we'll find out when we come back. Joe may be here next week. She may not. We'll figure it out during the week next week about the next show. According to my calendar, the 31st, New Year's Eve, may even be a little iffy too, but hopefully we can continue on here. So once again, thank you, ladies, for everything you do and how we put this together in our format, the whole thing. So we will see everybody in the by and by, and bye-bye.
We'll be dancing in the streets, dancing at his feet, dancing in the streets of gold. We'll be dancing in the streets, dancing at his feet, dancing in the New Jerusalem. And we will sing Kadosh, Kadosh to the Lord of hosts, joining in the angels' choir, and forever we will be.
We walk by faith, trusting that God is so much bigger than everything that we are, that God has much more happening than what we can see. You think God is just sitting back and watching everything that's going on? To a degree he is, because he's not actively intervening, but you don't think God doesn't have a war room that's going on right now, that he's consulting with his angels and saying, okay, you're going to do this, and you're going here, and how, and here you're, oh, when this happens, you're going to do this. You don't think God's not planning that out? You don't see that God is moving his people around right now? Certain believers are being moved from this place over to here because maybe judgment is going to happen over here, but God is also building communities of people and like-minded people and people with certain gifting and talents and skills and all that kind of. You don't think he's not gathering them all together so that when the curtain drops, that all of a sudden they're going to be like Haman and go, what happened? That's coming. But if we're going to insist on operating, if we're going to insist on operating by what we see, what we hear, what we feel, what we taste, what we smell, you're not going to have any idea of what God is doing. And you're going to be run over by the evil one. Had Elisha not been there to show him and to pull back the curtain of what was going on in the spiritual realm. Remember, the spiritual realm is a lot bigger. The dark web and the deep web are 500 times as big as the visible web. There's so much more going on behind the scenes, you don't even have any idea of it. Same thing with the spiritual realm. There are things going on. There are angels and spirits moving to and fro. Every once in a while, God peels back the curtain so that we have to see it. We have to get ourselves to the point where we're walking in that realm more than we are in this one. That is going to be what's critical for us in the days to come, beloved. Learn how to walk in the Spirit. And the way we do that, number one, is obedience. Got to be obedient. If you're not keeping the commandments of God, you're not walking in the spiritual realm.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.
Don't go away, your show will start after a brief pause.